They say nothing lasts forever, except our soul. It's bound to last forever. Tony and I met in our final year of college, and though I'd never been in a serious relationship before him, I knew we were meant for each other, forever. I was staring at a huge image of a boy that was hung against the wall. He was reading a copy of George Orwell's Animal Farm, and he had the expression of someone that just found the most absorbing insight. "Beautiful, isn't it?" I heard someone say as I turned back. "Very beautiful. One of the most beautiful sights," I replied. We both had volunteered for a non-governmental organization project that aimed to encourage reading among teenagers, and the first of many coincidences that I later regarded as fate was that we were paired together as co-mentors for a group of teenagers. Out of college and 4 years into forever, we were still as strong as ever, but things were not the same anymore. I had a decent job, and Tony was still finding his feet. He'd been working on his prototypes. Even though he worked really hard, he had no success selling his ideas to investors, and it really worried him. So I was so glad to see a rush of enthusiasm in him when he told me last month that he had a new idea and that he was sure this was it. If I can get the money to pull this off, it'd be the next big thing. I decided to take a loan and gave it all to him. It seemed to bring him back his liveliness. Coming back from work, I got a call from an unknown number as I entered my apartment that I shared with my roommate April. My face blanched as they told me that Tony was dead. I shook my head in disbelief as tears ran down my face. I felt a rush of something in my head as the words came out of the phone. April came out of the room and she was saying something because her lips were moving, but I heard nothing. Tony did not have any family apart from his sister. They lost their parents when they were teenagers. The days that followed Tony's death came so slow and everything changed for me. Staring at his pictures all day long was the only thing worth doing. I had not stepped out of our apartment in the past 5 weeks, and now it did not really matter to me whether I had a job or not. Maybe if I didn't have a job, Tony would not have felt as useless as he did and would not have had the urgent need to achieve something as quickly as possible. Maybe he would still be alive. Expectedly, my contract termination letter came. April tried her best to get me to go out with her, but she did not understand. Nothing was worth doing. Slowly, I had fallen into a daily routine of waking up from a sparring sleep in the morning, then going through all of the photos of Tony that I had. On some days, I would eat a little of whatever cold food April left from the previous night, and sometimes I cried. Tony used to love my long locks, but with him gone, what was the need of all this? I shaved all of them, and when April came back that day, she screamed, probably more than I did when Tony died. "Don't be so dramatic. I just wanted a new look. I thought it was the hair." "Kate, why do you have blood all over your arms?" That was why she screamed so loud. I did not realize that I had been cutting myself with a bread knife. I was surprised too, but it didn't matter. A few months later, April showed me pictures of Tony with another girl, claiming he was still alive. "Tony is dead, April," I told her. That night, I examined all that had happened over the past months, and I realized that something was just not right. It came to me eventually that I did not see the body. His sister said some distant relatives came and they took the body away to be buried. I was so confused, but I was determined to find out what was really happening. So I called April and she agreed to take me to the man that she said was Tony. I was in shock, one that was much greater than the one I experienced when I thought he was dead. To see Tony standing before me. According to him, he was able to get 2 investors to give him a huge amount of money, but when he realized late that his project was not going to come through, he decided to fake his death and run away. Apparently, he was now in a relationship with another girl, while I had been wasting away. Back in my room that day, I came to a conclusion that the only way to suppress the fire burning in my head and to make us even was to kill him. I found out where he lived after I stalked him. I had formulated a plan in my head and I hoped it would work out. Late in the night, I knocked on his door. When he opened it and he saw me, I started crying. I told him I'd almost got mugged and didn't know where else to go. He didn't ask how I knew where he lived and he invited me in. I sat on his couch and I watched as he fidgeted, shifting on his feet. I looked at him and barely managed to keep the hatred off my face. "How's your girlfriend?" I asked, failing to keep the bite out of my words. He glanced at me apprehensively and told me that she was fine. I smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach my eyes. While I had been a mess over his fake death, he was building a life with someone else. My body bore the scars of the horrible things that I had done to myself as a way to cope against the feeling of emptiness. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what I had to do. I stood up and I told him it was fine. I told him I had forgiven him. The relief in his eyes wanted to make me scream out of rage. I opened my arms for a hug, trying to keep the smile on my face. He walked over to me and wrapped me in a hug. He didn't notice the knife I had removed from my back pocket. He didn't realize what I was doing till his body jerked in my arms. He struggled against me, trying to detangle himself. I wrenched out the knife and I plunged it again into his stomach. I stabbed him again, counting the moments of despair I had gone through. When he finally stopped moving, I sat down on the floor next to his body and hugged my knees to my chest. He was truly dead now. I rocked back and forth, smiling to myself. I was still beside his body when the police came to arrest me. A neighbor had reported the screams. After investigation, I was taken to a mental facility for treatment. The dreams I had had about stabbing Tony over and over again still managed to put a smile on my face. Did you enjoy the first story? If you did, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. Oh, if you want your broccoli to be served fresh, then don't forget to hit the bell icon. Keep munching.
I have an experience that made me reconsider the entire dating scene and stay single for quite a while. And no, this isn't another dating story in which one of the people involved is a little weird and maybe eats a steak with only their hands. Or maybe they're self-absorbed and only talk about themselves without having the slightest interest in the person in front of them. Oh no, this story is just one of a kind. I'm just glad I got out of it safe and sound so I can share it with the world. I was young and I thought the world was mine. Being in my 20s, I liked to flirt and talk to a multitude of girls. I liked to go on dates, and after the dinner and a movie, it was time for dessert, if you know what I mean. I lived in Chicago at the time, a fresh college graduate having my first job and actually killing it at the office. My confidence skyrocketed and my life was actually going better than it's ever been. I was on cloud 9. One day after work, I went to a quite popular coffee shop just around the corner. As I was waiting in line, I saw someone drop her phone. I tried to help the person, but when she looked into my eyes, I almost fell on the floor. She had the most piercing blue eyes I have ever seen in my life. "Hi," I said, while I had her phone in my hand. "Hello, can I have that?" she replied. "Oh, your phone? I'm sorry, I continued. "I'm Natasha. Thank you for picking up my phone," she told me before she gave me a smile. I was stunned. This girl was different, but I couldn't help but notice something. It looked like she had been crying a lot. Her eyes were watery and she had some dark circles under her eyes. "Are you okay?" I asked her while I handed the lady her phone. "Oh, yes, thank you. I'm quite fine now," she replied, throwing that amazing smile my way yet again. Can I get your number? I know it's a long shot, you being so beautiful, but I must see you again." I told her nervously while my voice trembled. But the unexpected happened. She got out a piece of paper and wrote something on it. "I have to go," she told me, and as fast as everything happened, she was gone. I was afraid to look at that piece of paper. I didn't know what she wrote on it. I was already seeing the word creep in all caps. As soon as I unfolded it, the biggest smile appeared on my face. It was her number and a little heart next to it. I couldn't believe it. The most beautiful girl I've ever seen wanted to go out with me. Then, as the excitement subsided, anxiety kicked in. Maybe something's wrong with her, I thought to myself. But boy, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Later that evening, I gave her a call. "Hello, we met at the..." I tried to explain, but she cut me off. "Finally, I've been waiting for your call all day," she told me. I thought it was weird, but I decided just to go with the flow. After some small chit-chat about the weather and puppies, you know, the usual, we decided on a date the very next day. We were supposed to go to dinner at a restaurant I later found out we both loved. It all went amazing. We connected on so many levels. She was also funny, besides being simply gorgeous. After that amazing first date, 2 others followed. Everything went well, but there was something about her. I mentioned earlier that she was different, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. "Hey, you want to get out of here?" she told me in the sexiest voice I've ever heard while looking into my eyes and touching my hand with her fingers. "Come on," I told her and got up from the table before paying the check in a hurry and leaving the restaurant. We grabbed a cab and in no time we were at her place. The apartment looked good and it also smelled amazing. "What's that smell?" I asked her. She laughed as she lit a candle. "It's lavender," she told me. From all the gestures she made and all the signals I received, it was clear to me that she wanted what I wanted. But she was being more straightforward than other girls. It was like we've known each other for years and been together for some time. "Are you ready?" she asked, and, well, I'll skip this part of the story. All I can tell you is that we had an amazing night. After we had our fun, we fell asleep. At least that's what I thought, that we both did. At around 12 a.m., I was woken up by the sound of crying. I turn around and see her on her side of the bed with a box of tissues in front of her, tears falling all over the covers. "What's wrong?" I asked, immediately getting up. "Are you okay? What happened?" I asked her again. She paused for a minute, then turned around at me. "I never told you something. My ex passed away. You asked me why a beautiful girl like me is still single, but I just couldn't tell you then," she told me. "I'm sorry," I replied. "Thank you. He passed away about a month ago, and since then, you were the only one to ever touch me like that. You were the only one I felt a real connection with. I know it's real. I know we get each other in ways other people only dream of," she continued. I was standing there, listening to her. Things were getting a little bit intense. I mean, we got along great, but to say that we get each other so well and stuff like that, we don't even know each other. But I didn't interrupt her. "I feel like we are soulmates." Then she grabbed my hand, looked me into my eyes, and said something I will never forget. "Will you marry me?" I couldn't believe my ears. I was being proposed to by a girl on our 3rd date and whose boyfriend died a month ago. This chick is insane, I thought to myself. "Oh, I'm flattered, I really am. But I don't want to give you the wrong idea. I mean, we were just having fun. This is all a little bit too intense," I said before getting up to get dressed. But I couldn't find my clothes. I asked her where they were, and she started laughing. "Think you can just use me?" she told me. Then, out of nowhere, that lavender candle she had was coming straight for my head. I managed to duck, and it smashed into the wall. The next thing she did was get a knife from under her pillow. "This is Mr. Sharpie, and he loves to do things that make me happy," she said before getting up and standing right in front of me holding the blade. I tried to tell her to calm down, but she began being more and more aggressive. Suddenly, a sharp pain struck my entire body. She stabbed me in the shoulder. I screamed and pushed her away. After I escaped, I blocked her number and everything. A couple of months had passed and I was at my office dealing with some paperwork. "Excuse me, there's a client here," my boss's secretary told me. "Tell them to come on in," I told the secretary. "Hello again," the client said. "Hello, please have a seat." Before I could say anything else, the woman opened her trench coat and revealed cuts all over her body. "See what you did to me?" she yelled. I knew right then and there that the crazy girl I once dated was in the office. I was in great danger. I pushed the button to tell the secretary to call the police, but the phone exploded. I looked up and saw that the woman was pointing a gun at it. She shot the machine and then she aimed it for my head. "Any last words?" she asked. I closed my eyes and hoped for the best. The next thing I heard was a deafening sound and my body felt limp. I fell to the ground. "Stay there! Don't move!" I could hear, but my vision was getting blurry until I couldn't see anything. I woke up in the hospital. It turns out that the woman was immobilized by the security guards in the building before the police came, and I was shot in the shoulder and passed out. But that's not the craziest part. The craziest part was that after the police arrived, security guards released her, and she ran towards the window and jumped through the glass. The office is on the 13th floor. She instantly died. And the officers said that I was lucky. They found photos of dead men in her apartment, including the alleged ex she talked about.